At long last, we finally have a gimbal for the GoPro Hero 9. This is the Inky Falcon, and in this video I'm going to tell you more about this gimbal, some of the pros and the cons, why you might need a gimbal in the first place or why you may not, and also show you tons of sample footage using this gimbal. So what is the Inky Falcon? It is a gimbal or a stabilizer for action cameras. Specifically the GoPro Hero 9, this is the camera that I'm most interested in using with the gimbal, but you can also use it with the DJI Osmo Action or the Insta360 ONE R. Now for the GoPro Hero 9, this gimbal is really significant because to my knowledge, this is the only gimbal out there that will fit the Hero 9. We've been waiting almost a full year for a gimbal to come out for this camera, and the Hero 9, if you're not aware of, came out in September 2020, and it's a brand new size. It's probably the biggest GoPro that they've ever made. So as a result, it's been really difficult to find certain accessories for this camera, especially gimbals. So up until this point, I've been recommending the Moza Mini P, which is another gimbal stabilizer. But if you hold it up next to the Inky, you'll notice that the Moza is a lot bigger. And that's because this Moza can support a camera as small as the GoPro, but it can also support bigger mirrorless cameras. So the Moza, I did a whole video talking about this gimbal, and so I'll leave a link in the description below. But this Moza is great if you want to use it for a bigger camera. But if you just want a gimbal for the GoPro, then the Inky Falcon to me is your best bet right now. So why do you need a gimbal? If you have a camera that doesn't have good built-in image stabilization, so the footage is really shaky as you're filming with it, then a gimbal can help stabilize your footage. Now in the case of the GoPro, they started coming out with HyperSmooth built-in stabilization, which is so good that a lot of people, myself included, have argued in the past that you no longer need a gimbal to use with the GoPro. So if you like HyperSmooth, it doesn't work for everybody. Some people don't find it to be stable enough. Personally, I like HyperSmooth and I use HyperSmooth Boost, which is the maximum level of stability on the GoPro, a lot when I'm shooting my vlogs and also doing action videos. So in a lot of cases, HyperSmooth definitely will get you by. However, when you're shooting in HyperSmooth, there is a slight crop in your image. So if you don't like that crop and you want to shoot with a wider image, then you would need a gimbal in order to be able to do that. But for me, the main reason why I like to shoot with a gimbal is because I like to do motion time lapses. So those are moving time lapses, and they're basically impossible to do without a secondary device such as a gimbal. And so we use a lot of motion time lapses to show the passage of time in our videos, and yeah, that's the #1 reason why I use gimbals. But I did another video talking more in depth about why you need a gimbal, so I'll leave a link in the description to that video. So now let's move on to some basic specs about this gimbal, starting with how you attach a camera. So it's a pretty straightforward gimbal, and it does have the GoPro mount built in. So what you have to do is take out this screw and then take your action camera of choice. In this case, it's the GoPro Hero 9. It does have the built-in GoPro feet. So I'm going to extend those feet here. Then I'm just going to stick the camera into the gimbal. So when you're mounting the GoPro inside of this gimbal, you want to make sure that the lens is furthest from the bar. So the on button is accessible, however, the battery and the memory card are a little blocked. So that can be one downside to using this gimbal, is that you'd have to remove the camera if you want to replace the memory card or the battery. But you do have easy access to the on button. After the GoPro is mounted, just hold down the power button to power the gimbal on. Okay. Now you can see that the camera is pretty well stabilized as I'm moving the gimbal around. So it's pretty straightforward. So as you can see, this gimbal is super lightweight and compact. It does come with an optional tripod on the bottom, which is good for stability or just giving you a little bit of extra length if you want to make this gimbal even taller. The gimbal has a built-in battery that's rechargeable via USB-C, and it is compatible with GoPro models from the Hero 5 all the way up to the Hero 9. So besides the record button, there's also a joystick that lets you control the orientation of the camera while it's inside of the gimbal. And below that is an M button that cycles through 4 different shooting modes, including POV, pan, tilt and follow, and all lock. But probably best of all is the fact that this gimbal can connect directly to the GoPro via Wi-Fi, and you can control the GoPro camera using some of the buttons on the gimbal. Specifically over here, there's a photo button and a record button, and that's a really big deal because to my knowledge, there's very few gimbals out there that let you connect directly to GoPro, besides GoPro's own gimbal, the GoPro Karma Grip. The problem with the Karma Grip is that they're not really selling it anymore, or if they are, it's only available through GoPro.com, and it only is compatible with older models of GoPros. It's definitely not compatible with the Hero 9. As for the image quality when shooting with this gimbal, I think it's pretty stellar. The footage is ultra smooth even when I'm running at full speed, and it's really easy to both vlog with it and capture really steady B-roll footage. Well, I'm out here testing out this Inky gimbal for the GoPro Hero 9. The only downside so far is that you cannot use the GoPro with the media mod. So we're just using the GoPro bare naked, internal mics only.
Yeah, the mics on the butt naked GoPro are not that good.
So up until this point, all of these shots have been taken with this gimbal, but now we're shooting without the gimbal, so this is a reference point of what it would look like. I'm just holding the camera straight, no tripod, no mounts, no nothing, but we are using Hypersmooth Boost, so it should not be too terrible. Okay, walking forward again with no gimbal and just hand holding the GoPro. And the other good thing about this gimbal is that it's so small that it's not a big deal to have this in your bag and just have it with you. It's kind of like the size of a tripod, but it gives you the added benefit of having that ultra stable footage as you're shooting with the camera. But finally, let's go over a few drawbacks about this gimbal. First of all, it's not waterproof. I would say it's mildly water resistant. You might be able to shoot with it in the rain, but you definitely don't want to go swimming with it or plunge it into deep water. Second of all, you can't really use the media mod or an external microphone with this gimbal. As you can see, this GoPro Hero 9 is really snug inside of the gimbal, so there's really no room for the media mod. So if you want to shoot with external microphones, then you probably could, but you'd have to get a little creative about how to attach that microphone and either the media mod or the mic adapter that you need to have with the GoPro. The next drawback, I mentioned it earlier, is that when the GoPro is inside of the gimbal, you cannot easily access the battery and the memory card. They're like right up against this bar of the gimbal, so you would have to take the GoPro out in order to reach those two things. And that leads me to the other point that is kind of a downside, which is that it takes some time to get the GoPro in and out of this gimbal. I would really appreciate if there's a way to have a quick release function to get the GoPro easily in and out when you don't want to be able to use the gimbal with the GoPro. And the final possible drawback could be the price, which is $119 US. That could be seen as affordable or expensive to some, depending on your budget and what country that you're in. But personally, I think that's a pretty standard price for a gimbal. So there you have it. This is the Inky Falcon gimbal for the GoPro Hero 9 and other action cameras. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Would you try this gimbal out, or is there another gimbal stabilizer out there that you prefer for action cameras? Let me know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.